Maybe y'all saw the news out of Nebraska today. Apparently our entire state is going to go bankrupt in 2 quarters. Me and my husband owned a cattle ranch here, and I can confirm that all of the cattle ranchers here overwhelmingly voted for Trump. We support him. We voted for him. Something like 70% of our entire workforce is undocumented immigrants, and they straight up are not showing up for work anymore. They have all either fled the country, fled the state. They don't want to get raided while at work, so they have just moved on to work somewhere else. And straight up, we are gonna go bankrupt now. We are gonna go bankrupt. And yeah, we voted. We knew that the immigrants would get deported, and he was coming after immigrants, yet we still voted for it. Overwhelmingly voted for our own demise. I was talking to my husband last night, and I have to admit that it seems a bit foolish now when you think about it like that we voted for something that is now putting us directly out of business.
These MAGA voters are finally getting what they voted for, and boy, does it taste bitter. Every new day brings them a fresh surprise, one that stings, one that costs, and one that makes them question how exactly they ended up here. Their beloved Trump, the man they swore was the ultimate dealmaker, has managed to torch the country in record time. Just a month in, and the wreckage is piling up. And guess what? The damage isn't just hitting the coastal elites they love to rail against. It's steamrolling right through their own backyards. Take Nebraska, for example, a state where Trump's support was about as rock solid as a Midwest winter. Farmers there voted for him in droves, nodding along as he promised to crack down on immigration. They cheered when he pledged to get American jobs back into American hands. But here's the problem. Those jobs? Yeah, they were never in American hands to begin with. Agriculture runs on immigrant labor, undocumented workers who are the backbone of farms, from planting to harvesting to processing. Now, thanks to Trump's immigration crackdowns, those workers are vanishing, and suddenly, Nebraska farmers are waking up to a nightmare of their own making. Crops are going unharvested. Dairy farms are struggling to find workers. Meatpacking plants, the economic heart of many rural communities, are in crisis mode. The people who once scoffed at the idea that immigrants were essential to their livelihoods are now finding out, in the most painful way possible, that you can't run a farm without farmhands.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is something going on here in America, and even some MAGA Republicans are fed up. So Representative Diana Harshbarger was in East Tennessee yesterday holding a town hall, and she called Donald Trump's victory a mandate. And the crowd shot that down right away, started booing her. Many of these people, Republicans, ladies and gentlemen, Republicans. It's very important to note. Then you have Representative Keith Self. He held a town hall in Wiley, Texas, and there were chants of vote him out, and he left the stage. Again, many of his constituents, many of these people, Republicans. And I also found it extremely interesting. Roger Marshall, who's a complete douchebag and a MAGA moron, also held a town hall, and he's a senator in Kansas, and he holds this town hall in Kansas. One of his constituents, a veteran, stands up and says he's worried about veterans losing their jobs. Literally 20 seconds later, he gets up and leaves, and he doesn't even answer the question, and then he's booed. Democrat Congressman Tom Suozzi received a huge standing ovation in a Trump +5 congressional district at Hofstra University after talking about how despicable Donald Trump was, his behavior in the Oval Office with Vladimir Zelensky. Ladies and gentlemen, there's something going on in America. All this stuff happened just over the weekend. People are getting fed up. There is buyer's remorse. We know we have that on the left, but we're getting that more on the right now as people are losing their jobs, people are losing their livelihoods, and they're getting no explanation from the Trump administration, and they're certainly not getting any explanation from the people who are supposed to be working for them, that are Republicans, who many of these people voted for. They're getting booed out of these events, and I think it's saying something as to where we are at right now as America. People are fucking fed up.
It's almost poetic, really. The ultimate be careful what you wish for moment. The folks who thought they were voting for prosperity, stability, and a return to some mythical golden era are now watching their lives unravel before their eyes. And the kicker? They did it to themselves. The very policies they cheered for, the ones they swore would only hurt those people, are now sinking their own communities. But here's where it gets interesting. The anger is no longer just directed at the libs or the deep state. No. MAGA country is turning on itself. You can almost hear the gears grinding in their heads as reality sets in. The videos are everywhere. Furious Trump voters storming town halls, screaming at their own Republican representatives, demanding answers for why their farms are collapsing, their grocery bills are skyrocketing, and their once booming small towns are circling the drain. The betrayal they feel is palpable. They thought they were signing up for an America First utopia where factories would hum, farms would flourish, and immigrants would magically be replaced by eager, hardworking Americans. Instead, they got chaos. And now, MAGA is eating itself alive. Some are still in denial, convinced this is all some Democratic plot. Others are waking up, realizing they were sold a bill of goods by a man who never cared about them in the first place. The division is growing, and the irony is almost too rich. After years of chanting "drain the swamp," they're now realizing that the biggest swamp creature of them all was the one they worshipped.
If you're a Trump supporter, just know that there are 4 things that everybody who's not a Trump supporter thinks about you, and so far you've done nothing to disprove these things. 1, you're uneducated. And I don't mean uneducated in the sense that you didn't go to school and learn to read or do basic arithmetic. I mean you're uneducated as far as what's going on in the world. You got goggles on, only paying attention to what you want to pay attention to. Dose, you lack empathy. You don't care what happens to somebody else as long as it doesn't happen to you. Imagine for a moment the government started saying, "Hey, your marriage is illegal." How would you feel about that? How would you feel about that? But you don't care that it's happening to gay people as long as it doesn't happen to you. 3, you lack independent thinking skills, meaning you are incapable of forming your own thoughts, opinions, or viewpoints on things. You need pundit talking points from Fox News or whatever that other OAN. You need those people to tell you what to believe. You don't have the ability to look into those claims and maybe think something else. It's a confirmation bias. You live in this bubble and you refuse to step outside of it. 4, and I think this is the most important one. I think this is the one you really need to work on if you have the ability, and that is critical thinking. Critical thinking is the ability to look at a situation and say to yourself, you know what, that's kind of fucked up. That's not right, and you can't do that. So I look forward to all the laughing emoji reactions to this video, because the people that I just made these claims about don't have the ability to defend themselves. So if they do so, just put the laughing emoji. So fire away.
It's really interesting how every time I post about the work that Texans are doing and how Texans are fighting against this regime, I always get comments like this. They're, Texans deserve what's happening to them. You voted for this. And by interesting, I actually mean it's stupid. You've got this guy here I bet nobody in there listened to VP Kamala Harris. Not only did I listen to VP Kamala Harris, I was an invited guest in the VP's house multiple times and introduced her before one of her speeches. I promise you that you did not outwork me this election cycle behind your keyboard. I promise you that. And you all want to claim people like Jasmine Crockett. Where do you think Jasmine learned how to fight? Here in Texas, in the Texas House. Because we've been fighting these battles by ourselves for a long ass time while you've been sitting in your blue ivory towers looking down on us saying it's never going to happen to me, and now here we are. And when you leave comments like this of, Texans deserve it, this is what they voted for, what you're actually doing is perpetuating the rights talking point for them that our rights should be dependent on zip code. That's how they overturned Roe. So congratulations that you would rather point the finger than work on progress with us, because until you're ready to go and do the fight in the hard places, we're not turning this car around.
And just like that, the MAGA dream is looking more like a nightmare. Farms collapsing, prices skyrocketing, and the people who thought they were signing up for a better America are now realizing they might have just voted themselves into a deeper hole. But hey, maybe there's a lesson in all this, or maybe they'll just keep pointing fingers at everyone but the guy who sold them the fantasy. What do you think? Is this the beginning of a full-blown MAGA civil war, or will they stick it out and ride the chaos train to the bitter end? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, ones that break down the madness with facts, insight, and just the right amount of wit, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next.